Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Monday Night Travel with Rick Steves Europe. My name is Julianne Worden, and I will be your moderator this evening as we travel along with Rick. Tonight, we are seeing Rick's top musical moments in Europe. But before we begin this magical musical evening, I just have a few introductory comments to make. First, we recommend viewing this presentation in full screen. During the episode, you may find a video insert of Rick. We recommend dragging this to a bottom corner and having it take up about 10% of your screen. At the bottom of the page, you will also find a Q&A widget. We encourage you to submit questions throughout the event, and at the end of the screening, we'll have a Q&A session with Rick. And behind the scenes tonight, we have my esteemed colleague, Ben Green, helping me answer your questions in the Q&A. You may also notice that this presentation is being recorded for future use. Rest assured, though, that only Rick and I are being recorded, as both your audio and video are turned off. We also wanted to remind you that if you are interested in having the snacks that Rick has every week, which I know many of you are, we are now posting a menu on the sign-up page for Monday Night Travel, which is just ricksteves.com/MNT, as well as in the confirmation emails you receive, and we post the menu on Rick's Facebook page. So without further ado, let's get this musical evening started with our host and guide this evening, Rick Steves. Hi, Rick.
Julianne, thanks so much for the introduction, and we're having a good time. This is a doubleheader like every Monday, and you've just joined in for the second show. And I can promise you it's going to be a good one. This is so much fun every Monday night to invite you all into my home and celebrate travel. We're locked down, we can't travel, but we can still stoke our travel dreams and share our passion for getting out and embracing the world in all its diversity. So that's what Monday Night Travel is all about. Thank you for joining us. Every Monday we get together. And, I feel like in a normal year, I'm 100 days in Europe, and the rest of the time I'm home here just north of Seattle in Edmonds. And I spend a lot of that time traveling around the United States, giving talks about travel. And I can't do that. So this is my opportunity to enthuse about travel. And I'm just digging it. And I'm so thankful that you are joining us. We've got lots of great travels coming up. And tonight it's all about music. So make yourself at home. I'm glad you're here. Cuddle up with your favorite travel partner, pour another glass of that beautiful Austrian wine or wherever you're going to be taking your taste buds along with the travel shows tonight. And let's see, I'm going to, every week, as Julianne just said, we eat together. And I've been cooking all afternoon, man. It's just so much fun. And every week we have a different theme. This is what Beethoven would eat when he goes to the wine garden, I would say. You got your sausages, you got your spätzle, that's the Austrian type of pasta. You got your sauerkraut, my friends in Vienna call it a vitamin bomb. You got your boring mashed potatoes spiced up with a little bit of crispy onions and some horseradish sauce. You got some of the best bread in Europe, and you got spicy mustard. So there's our meal, and I'll be introducing you that in more detail later on. But right now, I want you to meet my friend Gruner Veltliner. And this is the wine of Austria. A third of all the vineyards in Austria produce this wine with the Gruner Veltliner grape. It's a fresh, drunk usually fresh and young, fruity or herby, depending on the vintner wine. And it's sprightly. It hits your palate like pop rocks, really. And it's just what you will drink when you're in Austria and when you're in Vienna. Now, I'm going to take you to our page here, which is called, Classroom Europe. And we're going to construct the show we're going to see today. So this is really fun for me to take you here because I love this program. Classroom Europe, it's free. It's designed for teachers and homeschooling parents, but it's just great for travelers that want to enjoy some travel. This is our homepage. You can find it a number of ways, but if you go to ricksteves.com, you'll find everything you're dreaming about travel, our tours, our books, our TV shows, our radio shows, and our guides marketplace. But we're going to go right here to Classroom Europe. And when we go to Classroom Europe, we find 500 clips distilled out of our 150 TV shows. It's free, it's fun, there's no ads in it, it's just yours for your travel dreaming fun. And when we want to put together a playlist, we make our own show. So you can just search in the search bar for whatever word you're looking for, or you can go to themes or historical eras or countries or whatever. And I think our theme today will be music. So if I click there, it says we got 28 clips on music. Well, that's good, but that's a lot more than half an hour. So let's go through here and see what we want to cobble together in a playlist. And I would say we want to go to Lisbon. Yeah, let's go to Lisbon and hear some fado music. So I add that to the playlist. What else might we do? We could go to Norway. Oh, I love Norway. It's my personal heritage. And we will listen to the music of Edvard Grieg, composed on the fjord. Let's go to Paris, to the greatest pipe organ in Europe. And let's see some more videos here. Oh, you can't do a TV show about music without going to Vienna. And if you like Mozart, you got to go to Salzburg. And if you like opera, the greatest opera house in Europe is La Scala. It's got a wonderful museum. So much we could do tonight, but we don't have enough time to do it all. But we got to go to Spain for some flamenco. So now we've clicked a bunch of stuff. We've got 7 videos, and it adds up to 24 minutes. We got time for 1 minute, one more video. If you look at the top here, you see all these, our composer in town here, Michael Mirapolsky, doing the Symphonic Journey. We partnered with them and we made a concert. And let's just do the finale here. This is the European Union's official anthem, the Ode to Joy by Beethoven. We click that. Now we got 8 videos, 29 minutes. That should do it. So if we click here, we see our playlist. And here we have it, and you can organize it. You know, let's, I'm Norwegian. I'm going to start off with Norway. So let's move Grieg up to the top and so on. And we'll finish with the finale of Ode to Joy. Now this, you could just click the link and share this with your friends just like that. And you got half an hour of music. You could save this list for the public so everybody can see it, or you can put it in your own personal playlist. You got to give it a name. And if you're a school teacher, a lot of teachers all over the country are using this. Let's call this music extravaganza. Extravaganza? Let's just call it an extravaganza. That's good enough. Okay. And then you got, if you're a teacher, you give it a short description and you give your students their assignment and then you save it. All right. So now we have saved that. If I go to my playlists, I can find music extravaganza. And that's what we're going to watch. So I want to thank you for joining us. I want to remind you that this is our chance to celebrate culture, to celebrate travel, and to make it accessible and fun. We're all in this together. We're going to start in Norway. And if you're a Norwegian, you want to get as far away from Sweden and Denmark as you can when it comes to celebrating your culture. And that means not Oslo, but way over in the west in Bergen. So we're going to start in Bergen, and we're going to go to the place where Edvard Grieg was inspired to make all of his beautiful music. And when I go to Troldhagen to see his little cabin where he was looking out and writing his music, I think of all the places in Europe where we lovers of art can go and be inspired by the places that inspired our favorite artists, poets. Wordsworth, William Wordsworth, go to the Lakes District of England. Painters, Impressionism, go to Giverny and see where Monet got all excited. And right now we're going to go to the west coast of Norway, and we're going to start in Bergen, and we're going to celebrate some Norwegian music. Thank you so much for joining us. Now let's go learn about Edvard Grieg. A park-like esplanade leads to the National Theatre. Fountains, celebrating cultural icons, provide popular meeting places. In the late 19th century, Norway's greatest artists and musicians called Bergen home. This fountain is dedicated to the beloved violinist, Ole Bull. And just outside of town is Troldhagen, the home of Norway's greatest composer, Edvard Grieg. Touring his home takes you back to the Romantic Age, when Grieg was a major player among European composers. Guides explain how Grieg and his wife entertained cultural bigshots who traveled from all corners to visit this Norwegian musical genius. And when the composer wanted to work, he had his escape, a peaceful cabin, complete with fjordside inspiration. Composing at the turn of the 20th century, Grieg fused simple Norwegian folk tunes with the flamboyance of Europe's Romantic style. Today, in the One with Nature Concert Hall, visitors drop in to midday performances by local musicians. With a setting like this, Grieg fans become tuned into nature, and nature lovers become tuned in to Grieg. And Grieg's music captures that rich and poignant mix of nature and culture that's so uniquely Norwegian. Whoa, can you imagine how proud Norwegians are of their beautiful nature and of their music and how it weaves together? Before I ever went to Europe, I was just a little kid here in Seattle, and my uncle from Norway stopped by. It was big news, Uncle Conrad. And my mom said, Rick, play Wedding Day at Troldhagen. That's the piece by Edvard Grieg. So I played Wedding Day at Troldhagen, named right after that place we were just at, Troldhagen on the fjord. And Uncle Conrad gave me $20. I'll never forget it, but he was so thankful that his distant American cousin was tuned in to the wonders of Norwegian high culture. Now we're going to go to Paris, and we're going to start off the Notre Dame, but of course the Notre Dame tragically is closed now as they repair after that fire. And we're going to visit a church which is a very nice alternative nearby, just across the river, with a very famous pipe organ, Saint-Sulpice. You can brave the line for a look at its interior and climb to the top of its bell tower. But the church I like to visit in Paris, especially on Sunday mornings, is Saint-Sulpice, to enjoy its magnificent pipe organ, arguably the greatest in Europe. For organ lovers, a visit here is a pilgrimage. After Mass, enthusiasts from around the world scamper like 16th notes up the spiral stairs into a world of 7,000 pipes. Before electricity, it took 3 men working out on these 18th century stairmasters to fill the bellows which powered the organ. The current organist, Daniel Roth, carries on the tradition of welcoming guests into the loft to see the organ in action. As his apprentices pull and push the many stops that engage the symphony of pipes, a commotion of music lovers crowd around a tower of keyboards and watch the master at work. Saint-Sulpice has a rich history with a line of 12 world-class organists going back over 300 years. Like kings or presidents, the lineage is charted on the wall. And overseeing all this, Johann Sebastian Bach. This sacred music continues to fill the spiritual sails of Saint-Sulpice as it has for centuries. By the way, that's Daniel Roth, R-O-T-H. You can Google him and listen to his music and his concerts and so on. He tours the United States. He is an amazing and generous and beautiful musical soul. You know, I got to say, when you're here in the loft, looking out over the nave, you get this appreciation of music. Martin Luther liked to say, when you sing, you pray double. Churches invest a lot of money in having a pipe organ in the back of the nave. And when you sit there and you think of the power of that music inspiring the worship, you almost feel like it's wind filling the sails of the vaults above the nave. Think of the nave, and above that's a ship motif. And above that, with the pointed arches, you've got the triangularies between the pointed arches called the vele, and these are sails. And the music provides wind, spiritual wind for those sails to push the church together toward the altar and that religious sort of theme. It's just a beautiful thing. Now we're going to go from Paris to Vienna, arguably the two big cultural capitals in Europe. A difference is Vienna had 600 years of Habsburg emperors, rulers, and they loved music. They paid a lot of money to keep the musicians in business. And when we go to Vienna today, we've got so much great art. In fact, the Habsburg Palace, they made a new wing just before World War I. And of course, in 1918, that was the end of the Habsburg. So you got this big palace. What are you going to do with it? Take that new wing and fill it with historic musical instruments. It's a wonderful museum. We're going to go there now. And in this museum, you've got great audio guides where you just listen to all the music of the instruments you're looking at, and you even get a chance to play the instruments. I got to demonstrate the evolution of keyboard instruments from the clavichord to the harpsichord to the pianoforte. And check this out and put it on your list when you go to Vienna. At the Hofburg, the Habsburg Winter Palace in the town center, Vienna's love of music is beautifully captured in a fine collection of historic instruments. Vienna was Europe's music capital long before Beethoven called it home. As far back as the 12th century, it was a mecca for musicians. Later, Habsburg emperors were generous patrons of music. In fact, many were talented musicians and composers themselves. Palatial rooms are filled with odd medieval noisemakers, regal trumpets, famous pianos, and more. Immersed in music history, this portrait is of a 13-year-old Beethoven. Visitors can actually hear these precious instruments being played with the accompanying audio guide. The clavichord and the harpsichord were two predecessors to the piano. For a couple hundred years, the clavichord was the standard keyboard instrument. It's small, it's simple, good for domestic, intimate settings. The keyboard action is very simple, just a teeter-totter motion. You can do a little dynamic contrast, from soft to less soft. And a little vibrato, if you like. The harpsichord makes a bigger and a brighter sound because the strings, rather than being hit with a hammer, were plucked with a quill. And because a pluck is a pluck, the volume was always the same. Remember, a pluck is a pluck, therefore the volume is always the same. Around 1700, they developed a more complicated mechanism that when you hit the key, it would throw the hammer up to the string and you could strike it softer or louder. They called it the soft, loud pianoforte. Today, we call it the piano. These days, visitors to Vienna find musical treats wherever they turn. Even if you don't have time or money for a performance, a visit to the opera is a must. The Vienna State Opera House, built in the 1860s, is the pride of the city. Here in the Grand Entry Hall, it's easy to imagine an age when opera was as popular as movies are today. Picture white-gloved dandies with their dates. Tours are offered daily.
We're standing now in a very elegant intermission room, which takes us back into the time of Franz Joseph. The auditorium altogether holds 2,200 places. You have a fantastic view from your seats. You have to imagine that the entire auditorium was damaged in World War II. So this place was terribly hidden by the bombs. The entire auditorium burned down, also the stage area. So it had to be completely rebuilt after the war. Well, we are now on one of the biggest stages in Europe. It's possible to compare the entire size of the stage to the interior of St. Stephen's Cathedral.
The Vienna State Opera, with musicians provided by the Vienna Philharmonic Orchestra in the pit, is one of the world's top opera houses, offering 300 performances a year. While the orchestra and the opera take the summer off, Vienna's music scene thrives year-round. So, I want to reiterate about this Vienna Opera House. 300 performances a year. And what's remarkable is every night of the week, there's a different opera. So there's a lot of movement going on. Oh, when you walk by, they're always working because they're changing out different stage sets. You know, when you're touring, this is my work as a guidebook writer, I've got to go to these different sites and find out how to enjoy them most. Well, a cool thing about Vienna is that opera tour. Don't miss it. It's the best opera house tour around. Now, we're going to go later to Milan, which has arguably the best opera house in all of Europe. The tour there is not so good, but the museum in Milan is amazing. We'll see that later. So for the museum, you go to Milan. For the tour, you go to Vienna. Vienna works really hard to make music accessible, like we'll see here in just a moment at the City Hall. That's what we're looking at. I mean, when you go to the opera house, sure, you can spend $100 for a fancy seat, but at every opera, they've got hundreds of $5 seats available up in the top, standing room only. And it really is a great way to check out the opera without going broke. And even for free outside of the opera, they've got a big TV screen with chairs set up. I can't believe it. So you can watch the opera streaming live if you can't go inside. Also, you've got the Augustiner Church right next door in the Habsburg's Palace. This is the royal church, the Augustiner Church, and every Sunday you have a virtual orchestra performing an orchestral mass. Just down the way, we've got the little chapel where the Vienna Boys Choir sings historically. And I went there on my last visit. And of course, you can't get a seat in this little chapel to hear the Vienna Boys Choir, but you can pack into the lobby and watch the monitor and hear the boys singing live, which is quite nice, and it's free. Now we're going to see what is a great option in the summer. As I'll mention, in the summertime, generally the symphony and the opera are on vacation, but they have this festival at the City Hall, the Rat House. And that's where you've got free music, and it's turned into sort of a meat market. It's just a food circus where everybody comes to pick up other dates and so on. And the city is subsidizing this because the city wants the next generation to appreciate and celebrate classical music. Let's do that now in Vienna.
And most summer evenings in front of the City Hall, free concerts are broadcast on a giant screen. Just before the show, people gather to enjoy dinner in the park. It's a lively local scene. Sure, there's some schnitzel, but it's mostly world food with Vienna at play. Singles consider this the best pickup place in town. The city government subsidizes the event, believing even those just looking to hook up will pick up an appreciation of a little high culture at the same time. Tonight, 3,000 seats are filled as people who couldn't make it to the original performance enjoy the Vienna State Opera and its orchestra perform The Love Potion by Donizetti for free.
So imagine that you've done your sightseeing, you've had dinner, and you stroll over to the City Hall and you enjoy a big concert right there with all the young people from Vienna. And they are drinking the Gruner Veltliner wine. I hope you are too. I hope you're having a good evening here with us. Yeah, so good. I want to introduce you to my food here, and I want to thank Rheinhaus in Seattle because that's a good German restaurant. They've got branches in Tacoma, in Denver, and in Leavenworth. But here we have quite a good Viennese spread. And I'm just going to introduce you to each of these things because it's kind of fun. I've got my oh, by the way, when you're talking about Vienna cuisine, it's tied into the Heuriger. The Heuriger is the new wine sort of festival. They've got these open air wine gardens. And in the fall, they have this festival where you drink the new wine and they serve rustic, hearty people's food like this from a buffet. And you go through and you pick whatever you like. It's cheap and they sell it to you by the weight. Of course, tourists want to have the Wiener Schnitzel, a thin breaded veal cutlet, and that's fun. But I wanted to do something a little more just a little more lively, a little more fun. So, and when we're thinking about the sausages, we think of that as kind of a wiener. When you think of the word wiener, well, Vienna, remember W is pronounced V, or V is pronounced W, yeah, Vienna. And wiener, Wien, a wiener is a Wienerwurst, so a Vienna sausage. But the confusing thing is, in Vienna, they call a Wienerwurst, because it's a Vienna sausage, Wiener, Vienna, Wiener, they call it a Frankfurter. I don't know what's going on there, but it's a Frankfurter, which is a different city in Germany. But these are Frankfurters in Vienna, but we call them Wienerwurst, and they are you got a whole different variety. You've got your bratwurst, which is a German sausage. And it's a German, these sausages are generally smoked pork and beef, put it in an encasing of sheep's intestine, okay? And the bratwurst is a German style sausage. It is beef and pork with seasoning. We've got a Polish sausage called kielbasa. And this is a reminder that Habsburg culture in Vienna is not necessarily German, because the Habsburg Empire was massive. It was a minority of the people in the Habsburg Empire that spoke German. Poles, Hungarians, Serbs, you name it, they're all part of the Habsburg Empire, and Vienna was the capital. So you would have the kielbasa, and the kielbasa would be a smoked pork sausage with garlic, and you'd also have the Hungarian sausage. And if you can imagine a Hungarian sausage, it's going to have paprika. In fact, the Hungarian sausage, it's usually the more red one, is smoked pork and beef with red paprika, cayenne pepper, onion, and garlic, okay? So you get a selection of those when you go to the Heuriger, and you just buy a little bit of this, a little bit of that. This is that's the Austrian pasta. This is called the Käse Spätzle. Well, Spätzle is the pasta, and Käse means cheese. But there you can see it. And that is it's an egg dumpling kind of cheese, a noodle, pasta, and it's called a Spätzle, which is the word for a little sparrow. So this is the little sparrow. And then they garnish it with crispy onions, with, sun-dried tomatoes, and it's good. And with chives. Now, I just cooked that today. And it's fun to cook it because you put it on a skillet and you brown it, then you toss in your cheese and you toss in your milk, and then you garnish it the way you like. And it's pretty straightforward. The problem is the German, it's hard to find a lot of this German stuff because during the pandemic, all the restaurants are pulling back on their selection because they're just trying to stay into business and everybody wants to buy a hamburger. But during good times, they will have all of this to help us indulge ourselves for our dreams about eating European here in the United States. Then we got mashed potatoes, and the mashed potatoes are kind of boring, but you garnish it with your crunchy onions and also horseradish. Horseradish is something I grew to love in Vienna. When you get a chance to have horseradish garnishing and spicing up your food in Vienna, go for it. Remember that. And also in Germany and Austria, they love their fancy mustard. So that's important. And then you've got your Kornerbrot, your whole grain Austrian bread. Germans and Austrians love their bread. They do it first class. Put this all together, you got yourself a beautiful meal. Okay, I hope you're enjoying your meal, and I'd like to wish all of you happy travels, happy travel dreams. And if you're in Austria, you're going to have, just like Beethoven, the Gruner Veltliner wine. Now, we're going to go to Salzburg. And when you go to Salzburg, you think of Sound of Music. And in fact, I was just thinking of Sound of Music myself. You got Julie Andrews up there. The hills are alive with the Sound of Music. But you've also got Rick Steves on the cover of the New York Times magazine. I just noticed that today. I was getting ready, and the New York Times was kind of being inspired, let's say, by the Sound of Music. But one way or another, you're going to be immersed in the wonderful nature of Austria, and you're going to do that in Salzburg.
Salzburg's cathedral, constructed in the early 1600s, was one of the first grand Baroque buildings north of the Alps. It's Sunday morning. The 10 o'clock Mass is famous for its music, and today it's Mozart. Enter the cathedral, and you're immersed in pure Baroque grandeur. Since it was built in only about 15 years, the church boasts particularly harmonious art and architecture. In good Baroque style, the art is symbolic, cohesive, and theatrical, creating a kind of festival procession that leads to the resurrected Christ triumphing high above the altar. Music and the visual art complement each other. The organ loft fills the church with glorious sounds as Mozart, 250 years after his birth, is still powering worship with his musical genius.
I gotta mention, I was blessed to be there on Christmas Eve when we were filming our Christmas special, celebrating Christmas all around Europe. We happened to actually be in Christmas in Salzburg, and we had our camera crew here, and it was amazing. You can see the footage if you look at our Rick Steves European Christmas special. But any time of year, especially on festival weeks, you can enjoy great classical music in the cathedral in Salzburg, and it's free.
Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart, who is the cathedral organist for 2 years, was born in this house in 1756. It was here that he composed most of his boy genius works. For fans, it's almost a pilgrimage. But his later residence, the Mozart Wohnhaus across the river, offers a better exhibition on his life and times. The place.
Excuse me, I'm talking with my mouth full, but I just wanted to remind you, this is what I do when I'm working is I know most of my readers are going to Salzburg. They got time for one Mozart site. Are you going to go to the birthplace or are you going to go to the place where he worked? I visit them both. I write them up. Some people just want to go to the more famous birthplace house, but I think this place here, the Wohnhaus, is much, much more rewarding if you really want to learn about Mozart and his music.
This is filled with scores of scores, portraits, insights into his family life and how the young prodigy was basically homeschooled by his hard-driving father. The Mozart family was successful enough to entertain Salzburg's high society in this fine room. This family portrait shows Mozart with his sister. He was proud of his first ever compositions for 4 hands. His father, also a fine musician and composer, and his mother, who died 2 years earlier in Paris. Nannerl called this portrait the best ever done of her brother. Mozart spent a good part of his childhood on the road, performing all over Europe. But throughout his youth, he called Salzburg home. When he was 25, he was ready for the big city and moved to Vienna.
Vienna, oh baby, we're going to be drinking Austrian wine now in Italy. I know that sounds crazy, but we've got some momentum here with our Gruner Veltliner, and I give you permission. As I was looking at that, it occurred to me, the first thing I'm going to do when we can travel again is get my staff together, my lead researchers and co-authors. We're going to go to all these great sites. Our books were so good in 2019. They were the best. They were perfect, I gotta say. We're going to go back and we're going to visit every site, and we're going to clean out the refuge, and we're going to just spiff it up, and we're going to make sure our guidebooks are good again. I don't know how much it's going to be different after this COVID time, but I think it's going to be exciting to get back on the road and to make sure we know what all the sites, the little guest houses, the restaurants, the cafes, and so on, make sure they're good in our guidebooks. Okay, we're not going to Vienna now. We were just there. We're heading south of the mountains, south of the Alps. We're going to Milano. And I want to remind you, all of these clips are taken from half-hour TV shows, and you can watch the entire TV show whenever you want to, just by going to ricksteves.com and into the TV section, click on whatever show you like, and you got it. I do want to remind you also that we're going to have questions and answers after the show. And Julianne is collecting your questions. And I got to say, I am so thankful for the hard work and the talent and the fun we have together. I've got a great team. I've got Julianne, I've got Ben, and I've got Gabe. And I know from reading all of your comments, you're appreciating working with them. They are working hard behind the scenes to make sure this show carries on every week smoothly, and they're holding my hand from a tech point of view to make sure it all goes well on my end. So Julianne and Gabe and Ben, thank you so much. Okay, let's go down to Milan and check out the great opera house there.
Milan is home to possibly the world's most prestigious opera house, La Scala. While tickets are pricey and tough to get, anyone can visit the museum, which comes with a peek at the plush theater, often getting set up for the next performance. Since it opened in 1778, La Scala has been committed to hosting the grandest of operas in all their intended glory. The La Scala Museum collection features things that mean absolutely nothing to the MTV crowd. Toscanini's eyeglasses, well-worn batons, Caruso's bust, original scores, and much more. The halls are alive with memories of the great composers and musicians that made this the ultimate opera scene. For over 2 centuries, Milan's Glitterati has enjoyed breathtaking performances by the biggest names in opera, from Maria Callas all the way back to Verdi. Giuseppe Verdi was the greatest of the Romantic Italian opera composers, and in the 19th century, his name meant more than music. He was a champion of the Italian unification movement. Back when flying an Italian flag could get you in trouble, Verdi's arias served as virtual national anthems. In the 20th century,
So before we go to Sevilla, I want to remind you that Verdi was sort of the embodiment of the Italian spirit for unification, for independence. In fact, I don't want to look at Sevilla when I do that. I want to look at Verdi. There's Verdi. And when you think of Verdi, you got to remember when his operas came to town, this was in the 1860s when Italians were getting it together and realizing they can create their own country. In 1860, there was no Germany, there was no Italy. In 1870, we have Germany and Italy. They brought it together. That's what was happening all over Europe. And when a Verdi opera would come to town, you could get in trouble for flying the Italian flag. You wouldn't really want to get in trouble with the French or the Austrians that were keeping you down. But you went to the opera house and people packed the opera house. And when the aria came around, they would stand on their chairs and they would sing together, bellowing out as if singing the Star Spangled Banner, but for Italy. And even the composer's name, Verdi, was as sort of a nationalistic slogan, V-E-R-D-I, Victor Emmanuel Re di Italia, the first king of Italy. Victor Emmanuel was the king of Piedmont. It was the biggest Italian state that actually had an Italian-blooded king. And when Italy was united, it was just assumed that Victor Emmanuel would be the first king. So when we travel, we can just feel the spirit, the national spirit, the pride, the joy they had in their culture. I do want to remind you, for more information on all of this fun music stuff, a friend of mine, Don, who I met traveling around Europe, is a writer for a magazine called Stereo Ember Magazine. And we it just released an interview Don did with me about all of my favorite musical experiences in Europe. And it's available on our Facebook page. If you go to Rick Steves' Facebook, you can actually see it right there and just click on it and read it. But Don did a great job of just kind of taking me through all my favorite musical moments and then writing it up very artfully and including some beautiful video clips. Okay, so now we've enjoyed a little bit of Italian culture. We're going to go all the way to the south of Spain to check out flamenco. Virtual national anthems.
In the 20th century, 1992 to be exact, Sevilla hosted a World's Fair that left the city with today's striking 21st century infrastructure, dramatic bridges, a sleek new train system, and even a new airport. Today, with 700,000 people, it's Spain's 4th largest city, an exuberant Andalusian capital. But the charm of Sevilla is best enjoyed in its traditions. Like flamenco, Spaniards consider Andalusia the home of flamenco. While impromptu flamenco still erupts spontaneously in old world bars, most tourists attend a show like this. The men do most of the machine gun footwork. The women concentrate on graceful turns and a smooth, dramatic step. Flamenco guitarists with their lightning-fast finger roll strums are among the best in the world. The intricate rhythms are set by castanets and hand clapping. In the raspy-voiced wails of the singers, you'll hear echoes of the Muslim call to prayer, an evocative reminder of centuries of Moorish rule.
So I want to remind you, you got to do flamenco when you're in Spain. Don't do it in Barcelona. Don't do it in the Riviera, in the Costa del Sol. Do it in Sevilla or in Madrid. Madrid has the top acts because Madrid has the biggest venues and the most money, so they're drawn to Madrid. Sevilla is the home of flamenco, and that's where you have a variety of musical performances. Now, what I'm looking at here is a touristy show early in the evening when the tourists can go there. It's not very expensive. It's good. It's a lot of the shows are available 8, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock. They cost $15 or $20. It's an hour, and you learn a lot about flamenco. I really like that. Also, there's sort of kitschy cruise excursion shows that I don't like so much. And then there are the impromptu explosions of local joy of flamenco that are well after midnight, that if you're wandering the back streets, you just follow your ears and you settle in and buy a jug of sangria and you're right there in the front row. You can do that. But really, there's a lot of good options in Sevilla. So you want to check that out. And there's more to flamenco culture than the music. Right now, we're going to connect with my favorite guide in Sevilla, Concepcion. She's a fixer for us whenever we do something in Andalusia. And Concepcion is going to take us shopping. And this is flamenco type shopping where you get, the shawls and the mantillas and the fans. And with the help of a guide, like you'll see right here, you get a little better understanding of all the culture that's beating all around you. Let's join Concepcion in Sevilla for a little insight into their culture.
The town square is Plaza Nueva. It honors King Ferdinand III, fondly remembered for freeing Sevilla from the Moors in the 13th century. From here, wander into Sevilla's pedestrian zone shopping center, which Spaniards prefer to the suburban mall. This is the place for traditional Spanish fashions. But I wouldn't know my manchego from my mantilla without a little local help. My friend and local tour guide, Concepcion Delgado, has agreed to be my personal shopper. So there's all these traditional things to buy. Isn't it just for tourists that they sell these?
No way, these are for locals. We love our things. We have preserved our traditions for centuries.
So these traditions are healthy?
Completely. This is one of my favorite shops. Buenos dias.
Hola.
Good, and now let me show you the 3 most traditional accessories that women wear in Spain: shawls, mantillas, and fans. Starting with the shawls that you can see here, big display of beautiful colors and embroideries, which are very practical for us too. We would use them as accessories, but they also have a function, which is warming you when you're cold. This is what we wear on top of the beautiful, nice flamenco dresses to attend to the April Feria. On top of the flamenco dress, you cannot wear a simple coat. You have to wear something more distinguished, which is a shawl. You can leave it like that. It's more sexy. Here we've got the mantilla. The mantilla is another accessory which can be in 2 colors, white or black. It's always combined with this comb, which is incorporated in the mantilla like this, and then we wear that on our heads.
Okay.
Yeah. It just was occurring to me, I'm so thankful for my local guides, like Concepcion. Concepcion actually flew all the way to Seattle for our winter alumni party, where all of the people who enjoy our tours come back, and all of our guides fly in from all over the United States and Europe. And we invite some of our special local guides, like Concepcion, just to celebrate and meet with all the people that she met on our tours. Because when we come to Sevilla, you can bet we've booked Concepcion to show us around town. But I was just thinking as I watched this, it's just, she's a good friend of mine, and it's so stressful to have the camera in your face. And I'm sort of pretty much, okay, I want you to say this and this and this. And then she just nails it. I mean, she's so good. My guides in Europe make everything we do possible. I'm so thankful for our guides like Concepcion. We've got a Concepcion in every great city in Europe, from Portugal to Finland to Athens. It's such a blessing for our work.
The white one, it's only for the feria, for the festival in April, when women wear them to attend the bullfights. Let's have a look at the fans now. As you can see, very different colors, different materials, but they are mostly made in wood.
Remember that Sevilla gets very hot during the summer, and women, all ladies, use them especially when they attend services. Very old churches don't know air condition, and they are cooling themselves like this. Sometimes you hardly hear the priest, just that's all around you. In the old days, there was a language with fans, which is disappearing, but in the love game, it was very useful too. For example, you were looking at someone that you weren't interested at, you can go away because I don't like you much. But if you were really interested, that movement could tell him something, don't you think? Anyway, the most common movement for fan is
I love going to these towns and having local guides tell us all about that culture. And it's so strange for me to be enjoying Viennese spätzle, the little sparrow, while we're in Sevilla learning about the fan. By the way, on this show, that last one that we're just looking at, it was just a little segment of a show on the April Fair. And Concepcion took us to the April Fair, which is just an amazing bash. And you've got, it's like 100 family weddings going on at the same time in a big park for 7 days in a row. Families and businesses put up a tent called a caseta, and then they invite all their friends by. And we got to go there with Concepcion and have an amazing time. But right now we're going a couple hours to the west. We're going to Portugal. This is Lisbon, and we're going to check out the fado culture.
The Bairro Alto was laid out in the 16th century to house shipworkers back when Lisbon was a maritime power, and its ships planted the Portuguese flag all over the globe. 5 centuries later, its character survives, as families who call the Bairro Alto home go back generations. A popular stop nearby is the grand old A Brasileira Café. This cafe retains the ambience it had back in the 1920s and 30s, when it caffeinated the literary soul of Lisbon, and it's still a good place for a coffee break. In the evening, the Bairro Alto buzzes with a thriving restaurant scene, and various restaurants serenade diners with the folk music of Lisbon's back streets.
Companheira dos meus gritos, rio de sonhos aflitos.
Traditionally, simple family-run restaurants entertained guests with fado music. Since the mid-1800s, fado has been Portugal's blues, mournful ballads about lost sailors, broken hearts, and bittersweet romance. It's impromptu, informal. Sometimes the singer's just taking a break from the kitchen. She's accompanied by a couple of musicians, one playing a 12-string Portuguese guitar. We're dining a little more upscale with just the right seat for this intimate music. These are songs of sadness, love, and hope.
Ficasse no outono, à espera da primavera.
It's a distinctly Portuguese emotion called saudade, a kind of yearning or nostalgia.
Em minhas mãos, amor, todo meu pranto, uma canção de amor. Dentro do peito.
I just love that. When I'm in Lisbon, I have to go out, have dinner, and enjoy some fado music. And I remember when we were filming here, we're set up, and by the way, it's way more light than it should normally be. The musicians and the singer were very accommodating, because in order for us to shoot this was a few years ago before we had more light sensitive cameras, we had to set up lights. And it just messes up the ambience, but it makes it for better TV. But we were having a nice dinner there. And then after it's done, we literally just walked around the block and dropped by 2 or 3 other fado places and got those more casual, informal fado performances. But you got to check that out when you're in Portugal. In fact, every week I kind of promote my new book, For the Love of Europe. This is 100 essays about my favorite experiences in Europe. And my very first essay out of the 100 is fado, Lisbon's Fisherwoman's Blues. And I just hope that you can enjoy these connections with the cultures in your travel. Now, we're going to next look at a concert, a little clip of a concert. And I've always thought that Americans are, like anybody, are ethnocentric in their love of music. I mean, my Uncle Conrad, he loves Grieg. His little cousin in America is playing Edvard Grieg song on the piano. Here's $20, little kid, because he was very proud about that. Americans love Aaron Copland. We love Gershwin. We love John Philip Sousa. We love the Star Spangled Banner. I wanted to grab my local symphony here in Edmonds and put together a concert that dropped down in 7 different countries in Europe and demonstrated how each country in Europe has its own favorite musicians, that their hearts go pitter patter when they hear that music. And we're going to hear the last one of those concerts, which is the finale, our symphony playing Ludwig van Beethoven's Ode to Joy in just a moment. We made this concert, it's called the Symphonic Journey. And we've got, of course, we've got a DVD. You can buy the DVD if you want, or you can just watch it for free on my website. But this has been performed all over the United States on public television and in person. And this concert came with a wonderful history. I was just so passionate about explaining nationalism and romanticism, how it worked together. So the whole concert is from the same generation in the mid-1800s that talks about how all of that worked together. And this brochure is available for free in the TV section, where you will find the Symphonic Journey. Now, the Symphonic Journey goes to 7 different countries, as I mentioned, and we've performed it around the United States. I got to play it at the Boston Pops a couple of times. I did it 3 times for the Houston Symphony. I did it in Seattle and in Denver, and I was booked to do it many times last year, but we had to cancel them all because of COVID. But the finale, after all of these different countries, is listening to the Ode to Joy by Beethoven. And we're going to hear that now. And when you hear this, you'll see images spanning the entire continent of Europe. And you'll see the natural wonders, the cultural wonders, and most importantly, the joie de vivre, the love of life. How Europeans know how to live without the kind of the rat race that we are so good at. And European society will never be as materially wealthy as we are here in the United States, but in a lot of ways, they are wealthier than us. And we can learn from that, and we can be inspired by Europe's ability to step away from the materialistic rat race and actually enjoy the moment. So we're going to watch Beethoven's Ode to Joy. And when we watch this right now, we'll be going all around Europe. Please let this be an opportunity for us to all meditate on what life is going to be like when we ramp up again after we get a grip on COVID, when these vaccines take hold and we can all get back to doing what we love doing so much, and that's reaching out and embracing travel, celebrating the world in all its diversity. Let's go now to the Edmonds Cascade Symphony Orchestra right here in my hometown. We will celebrate Beethoven's Ode to Joy. In so many ways, the 19th century laid the groundwork for the freedoms that we enjoy today in the 21st century. And that passion for freedom is still strong in Europe. Of course, the big news in our generation is the gradual integration of that long bickering continent into a peaceful union. And while it's tough to get all those proud nations to do anything at the same time, their motto is united in diversity. And one thing they do very well together is embrace the ideals of their anthem. This piece was conceived in the revolutionary spirit of the 19th century and set to a poem about universal brotherhood. It's an anthem, relevant today as it was when Beethoven set pen to paper, calling all men to brotherhood, to celebrate freedom, and to be united joyfully in their diversity. Now, the official anthem of the European Union, Beethoven's Ode to Joy. You know, I got to say, one of the great joys for me to be able to put that together with my wonderful staff was to celebrate volunteer community orchestras, not big time orchestras. I mean, yeah, celebrate them too. But all over our country, we've got volunteer orchestras in little towns like mine, Edmonds. And I just want to drink a toast, not only to the volunteer musicians and the conductors, but the people, you and me, who keep these orchestras in business during COVID and after COVID. Beethoven's Ode to Joy. It's probably one of the rare times you can see me dressed up. I really enjoyed getting dressed up and demonstrating what a tour guide does, sets the context. That's what a Rick Steves tour guide does. Gives the context and then turns the group loose to enjoy that high culture. And you know, there's so many ways to do that. Now, after doing that symphony, the symphonic journey, which again, you can watch in its entirety on our website. Just go to our website, ricksteves.com, go to the TV section, watch the whole show. It's an hour. And it's just, I'm so thankful to have been able to do that. And we did it all over the country in person. I'll be doing it again as soon as we come out of COVID. But I thought, how can I follow that up? And one thing I've always wanted to do, first of all, I wanted to show how Romanticism and nationalism teamed up in the 1800s, like we just saw there. But what I want to also show is how all of the arts hold hands as they walk through the ages. Statues, paintings, architectures, composers, all together. And I used to give an 8-hour talk about how to travel on Saturday. This is back when I was a student. And then on Sunday, I would give an 8-hour sweep through the art and history of Europe for travelers. And I no longer do this 8-hour lecture on history and art for travelers on a Sunday, but I did put that into a 5-hour class that is quite tight and quite good. And it's available on our website anytime. You can always go there and check that out if you want to get that sweep. And part of that sweep, whenever there was a piano nearby, was I would play on the piano how music was, if you close your eyes, the music is just like what your eyes would see through Baroque, through neoclassical, through Romantic, through Impressionism, and so on. So what I'd like to do right now is share with you a little concert I made. I made this little concert. I taped it in advance because I knew I was going to be unable to play quite as well as I'd like to. But happily so. And my lovely girlfriend, Shelly, is my videographer. She's so good. I have an audience of 2 very relaxed labradoodles, Gracie and Jackson. They love my piano, and I hope you do too. So right now, we're going to celebrate how art sweeps through the ages together, holding hands, whether it's for your eyes or for your ears. Baroque, Neoclassical, Romantic, Impressionism. Hey, I'm Rick Steves, and those are the art periods that our eyes know, but I want to talk about it for your ears. Baroque lasts from about 1600 to 1750. This is after the Renaissance. It's more ornate, more flowery. Bach, Handel, Scarlatti, the big Baroque composers, all born in the same year, 1685. A great Baroque sort of style is taking 2 melodies and weaving them together, like this Bach invention. Also, Baroque is ornamented, lots of frills, lots of trills. Here's a dance by Scarlatti, and it's a good illustration of that floweriness of Baroque. Lots of trills. I mean, Baroque music is kind of like Bernini for your ears. If you're going to play Baroque, you better have ruffles on your sleeves. The next art period is neoclassical. It goes from about 1750 to about 1800. This is the age of enlightenment, the age of revolution, where everything is subjected to the test of reason. For some reason, in musical terms, they call this classical, not neoclassical, but classical, but it's the same thing. You know, Mozart, Haydn, working in the late 1700s, neoclassical. They say music is like architecture. If ever music was like architecture, it's during this neoclassical period. Think of the Arc de Triomphe, the neoclassical Arc de Triomphe in Paris. You know, you've got that concise, that balanced, everything is resolving. Here's a good example of the musical version of that, a Turkish march by Mozart. Neoclassical is very cerebral. The next art period is Romantic. The ism of the 1800s is Romanticism. Romanticism loves nature, loves drama. It celebrates national and ethnic struggles. Think about the great Romantic composers, Brahms and his lullabies, Strauss and his waltzes, Wagner and his dramatic German anthems. You know, when you play Bach and Mozart, you want a metronome ticking away so everything is right on the beat. But when it comes to Romantic music, you can toss that metronome out the window because your heart is the conductor. Now, Romantic music is not always sweet. In fact, I'm going to play the last line of a Chopin prelude. And the indication is to play it molto agitato, very agitated. Romantic, but very agitated. Of course, in Romantic, we have dreamy music. And a good example of that is Schumann's piece called Traumerei, Dreaming. And this shows a good example of rubato. You shape the phrases. You accelerate, accelerando, crescendo, you peak, and then decrescendo and retardando. You shape it the way your heart asks you to do it. Dreaming by Schumann. So that's Romantic, and the Romantic movement leads right into Impressionism, the ism of the late 1800s. Impressionistic art is moody, it's atmospheric. In music, unlike Mozart, it has blurry lines. Think of Satie, Ravel, Debussy. If you listen to Debussy with your eyes closed, it's almost like walking through a garden with Monet, surrounded by all of those water lilies. Here's a great example of Impressionism. It's an arabesque by Debussy, and it's got an element where you've got 8 notes in triplets, 2 against 3, letting the musician mix it up to create his own or her own impression. Cascading down, Impressionism. And the 20th century was filled with splashy modern art. And it's a reminder that the more we know about art, the more fun it is, whether for your eyes or for your ears. Oh, man. Thank you for letting me share that with you. I love that whole idea, the way art goes through the ages together. And look how excited our dogs are. Jackson and Gracie, they just can't get enough of that. Boy, oh boy. Hey, all right. So, you know, it's odd to be one way on this, but I feel like we're together. I feel like this is just a wonderful communion, and I'm thankful for it. By the way, that was that on my very first trips to Europe, I got to visit the piano factories where that piano was made. That was made in the Black Forest in Germany, and it's a Sauter, Sauter, and I think they make the best small grand in the world. I purchased that piano before I even owned a car, and that was the piano I taught on before I ever went to Europe. It paid for my first trips to Europe because I was a piano teacher. Thank you so much for joining us today. I hope you've enjoyed this swing through the highlights of music in Europe. And now, Julianne, I think we have some questions to answer.
Yes, we have some great questions tonight after that beautiful episode. But first, can we have a word from our sponsor?
Well, thank you, Julianne. You and I both work for a company called Rick Steves Europe. This is tough times. 2019 was our best year ever. We were just jamming. We took 30,000 people to Europe. We got 100 people on our staff. We still have 100 people on our staff, but we've trimmed our sails and we're going to get through this COVID pandemic. And we are with our team together. We're investing in our content. We're investing in our infrastructure. We're taking care of our travelers, and our guides in Europe are ready to go. And we're just waiting for these vaccines to take hold. So we're excited about that. And for the word for our sponsor, I would like to take us to, take us to our homepage at ricksteves.com. And let me just go to our homepage. And if you go to ricksteves.com, let me see if I can find it here. There we go. You can find everything that we do. Just go to ricksteves.com, and let me just take a moment here. We've got an almanac of all the information. You can get it, you can pay for it in different venues, but you can get it free right there. We've got information about our tour program. We've got 15,000 people signed up on the wait list for our tours starting in the fall of 2021. We are ready to go. The table is set. All the ducks are in a row, all those cliches. We just got to make sure it's safe and solid and ready to go. So if you want to be on board and be the first to know when we do throttle up, get your name on a waiting list. Of course, you can go to our shopping, our online store and get some books. You can see all of our TV shows that we've ever made. We've got 500 hours of radio interviews in our archive that you can check out, and much, much more. But what I want to do right now is go to our tour program and remind you the main way we make our money is with our tours. And we're not doing any of that this year because we can't do tours, but we have our 2021 tour brochure. It's a 64-page booklet. Normally we mail it to people, but this is just a PDF this year. But you can download that and know what our plans are for when we are able to travel again. And we think that'll be later in 2021. But what I want to show you right now is our guides marketplace. We work with 100 amazing guides, most of them Europeans. Right now, they're independent contractors. They have no work. It's very difficult for independent guides, and we all love our guides if we recognize how valuable they are. And what we're doing as a company at Rick Steves Europe, until we can sell our bus tours, is connect our travelers with our guides so they can keep their travel dreams alive. And must have 60 or 70 different guides participating in this. This is the Rick Steves Guides Marketplace. And our tour operations staff goes to this and picks the market picks of the week. For instance, this week, we've got our friend Torben, who's a guide in Berlin, talking about Berlin. Francisco is from Basque Country, and he's talking about something going on in Basque Country. Margaret is from Granada in southern Spain, and Veronique is from Paris. So we've always got the best of the marketplace highlighted there. We've got virtual experiences, guides offering their own tours, and travel blogs. These virtual experiences to me are just amazing. I can get lost in here. There's so much fun going on. Most of it is free, some of it is for a fee, but we've got all sorts of passion and teaching and expertise here. And let me show you just a sample of that. We have a friend named Paul Johansson in Oslo in Norway. And like so many of our guides, Paul's got his own teaching going on. I want to show you, I'm just going to click here, show you a 1-minute clip from Paul. And remember, Paul is typical of our guides all over Europe. Paul is a Rick Steves guide. Let's check out Paul in Norway.
Hi there, my name is Paul and I'm a tour guide and sailor from Oslo, Norway. In this channel, I make films from Scandinavia with a special focus on my home country, Norway. My goal is to show you some of the best museums, sites and architecture that we have in this region. I also love food and I teach you how to cook and eat traditional Norwegian dishes. I make episodes from nature where I do hiking, camping and look for wildlife. On my Albin Vega sailboat, I sail to remote places in the waters of Scandinavia. I hope you will subscribe to my channel and join me on this journey through my part of the world. Thank you. Tusen takk.
Oh my goodness, Paul, thank you. And I just want to remind you, I had 100 of our guides right here in my living room a year ago, almost a year ago this week. And I love our guides and I love my staff. Our staff, we're still together. Our guides are independent contractors here waiting for the day when we can travel again. If you want to connect with our guides, you've got the Guides Marketplace. It's right there. There's 50 or 80 guides, just like Paul, representing every country in Europe. Check it out. Okay, Julianne, let's go through some of our questions.
Okay, great. Well, the first question before we dive into the music questions, some people were wondering, where did you get your compass t-shirt, Rick?
My compass t-shirt. Well, thanks for asking. I don't ever know what t-shirt to wear for my Monday night travel. This is my Life is Good t-shirt. And I just, sometimes in Europe, like a baby yelps out for joy, sometimes seemingly inexplicably, I just go, life is good. A lot of times I'm alone and I just think life is good. And I'm thankful for travel because when you travel, you realize the world is filled with beautiful people. It's filled with love. It's filled with joy. And those of us who don't have the opportunity, the blessing to travel, we can let commercial media that has an agenda to make us frightened and to make us angry, it can sour our approach to the world. And when we travel, we reach out in a positive way. So I like my Life is Good t-shirt because it reminds me when we travel, we make friends with the world. And here in the United States, we're 4% of this planet. It's a pretty good 4%, but there's a lot out there that we can get to know. Life is good. And when you travel, especially when you travel on a Rick Steves tour, I think you're going to learn very vividly how good life can be.
Wow, just from a t-shirt, Rick. That was really nice. Okay, so our first music question, quite a few people were wondering, Jenny, Eleanor, and Richard, they're curious about the theme song to Rick Steves Europe. Who composed it? How did you find the theme song?
When you make a TV show, you hire a local composer to make a cool song for you. And there's a guy in Seattle that's famous for composing things for TV shows. And so his name is Jerry Frank. Jerry Frank made our show. And just today, I got an email from a student, like a 12-year-old student named Brendan. And he listened to our song and he picked it out and he can play it on the piano. And that's so beautiful. And I got to hear that. And it occurred to me, we're all together, we're connecting. And I just sent an email a couple hours ago to Brendan. I said, if he can make that in a horizontal format instead of a vertical with a little more joy and confidence, we're going to let him have the stage right here and we'll have Brendan play our song. But that's Jerry Frank's music. And I'm really thankful for Jerry's music because it gives us a nice sort of theme song.
Great. Shauna and JD were wondering, what instruments do you play besides the piano?
You see I think my trumpet is just over there. I don't know if you can see that right there. That's the trumpet I bought when I was 14 years old in Rothenburg in Germany. And it was made in the Czech Republic or Czechoslovakia back then. And it has rotary valves like a French horn, but on a trumpet. Americans are used to piston valves on a trumpet, but it has cool rotary valves. So I had the freaky trumpet all through high school. And I played the trumpet until my band director said, Steves, we need some more tuba players. So I had to get over to the tuba. And then I fell in love with the bass line and I played the sousaphone in the Husky Marching Band. So that was my claim to fame before I started writing travel books, was I was in the Husky Marching Band playing the sousaphone. We were the clowns on the field performing to 50,000 people in the stadium. But, my dad was a band director and he would bring home all the instruments on weekends so we could have our own little swamp band going on in our family. But I just love the piano. Piano is beautiful. I'm so thankful for that. I'm thankful my mom and dad made me. I mean, it's really a labor of love and it's no fun to force your kids to learn piano. I'm not sure what the right thing to do is, but I used to be a piano teacher and kids would be pushed into the studio with tears on their cheeks. And I would go, oh, hi, yeah, I'm Rick, I'm your piano teacher. And I would turn them into music lovers. I mean, they came in just wanting to play boogies and they left enjoying Bach. So, it's just a blessing if you have the opportunity to you get good enough as a teenager so that when you break through that surf and you get into the wide open seas of music appreciation with the keyboard, for the rest of your life, the piano is your friend. I mean, you know, Julian, you're a musician, and I can step into my dining room. I mean, what a waste of space to use a dining room for a dining room. You got to put a piano there and make music in it. And that's what I love to do.
Yeah. Yeah. My grandma used to have a sticker that said, "Have you hugged your piano today?" I always like that.
I just got to say, Julian, you see your name right there, Julian Worden. You're a beautiful musician yourself, and you just produced an album, and people can check it out. If they just Google Julian Worden, can they find it?
I think so. I think that should be enough to find it. Thank you.
But I love your music,
Yeah.
Julian.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Building off of your piano playing, Cheryl was wondering, have you ever played an organ in Europe? Organ.
You know, I traveled when I did my Martin Luther show for the 2017 500th anniversary of the Protestant Reformation. I had a Mighty Fortress Is Our God, what Martin Luther composed, which is like Lutherans love that. And I had it in my bag everywhere I went, so that if we ever found a pipe organ that I could play, I wanted to play "A Mighty Fortress Is Our God," and I got to play it on the pipe organ that they said was played at Martin Luther's wedding. It is so cool that Martin Luther, the monk, married the nun, Katie, and that was just all part of that crazy Lutheran Reformation spirit. But I got to play it on that pipe organ.
Wow.
But on many occasions in Europe, I've been able to play pipe organs, and it really is a thrill. One of the great things about staying in a B&B is you get to sort of ride on the coattails of the host. And I've stayed with hosts in a couple of situations who were the pipe organists at their local church. And they learned I played the piano, and they said, "Well, let's go down to the church and play the pipe organ." And I go, "Okay."
Well, that is a good thing to note for staying in B&Bs. I'd like this question from Kathy. She said, "Music is often said to be a universal language. Has that been your experience in traveling?"
Absolutely, absolutely. You know, I mean, I'm so busy and like focused and workaholic when I'm in Europe that I don't really take the time for music like a music lover should. But every time I get a chance to enjoy music, whether it's jazz or street singers or Baroque music in a Baroque palace in Prague or zarzuela, the Gilbert and Sullivan kind of version of Spanish music, light opera, it's just everybody gets together and there's no language barrier. You're all just into the beat. I was in Bern, the capital of Switzerland, and I was really on a roll with my research. And get out of my way if I'm researching my book, because I've got lots of work to do. And I hit a busker festival. This was the European-wide busker festival. All the street musicians in Europe were gathered together in Bern. And I thought, oh, thousands of people are going to suffer because I won't be 100% on my research for my Switzerland guidebook, but I'm going to enjoy this busker festival. I spent $10, got the little plastic wristband, and then for 2 nights I got to run around town, and it was just like a 3-ring circus of busker music, street musicians playing everywhere. It was so much fun. Wow. And when you travel in Europe, you got to be aware of that. And that's why I wanted to mention Dawn's article, that interview with me in that magazine, Stereo Embers magazine, a music magazine. If you go to my Facebook page at ricksteves.com, we just posted it, I think today or yesterday, and you can click there and you can read that article, but it's got lots of practical tips that are derived from my accidental experience of being a music lover in Europe. And everywhere you go, you've got a chance. I was in Finland and I saw all these people on the steps of the cathedral there. What's going on? It was like 500 people. And it was the annual massing of the church choirs, and they meet on the steps of the cathedral, and then they break apart and they march like they're on a mission into all the pubs in the town, and they bring choral music to the pubs. So you're in the pub just minding your own business, having a beer, and here comes this Finnish church choir coming in to sing you some beautiful choral music. And they do that every year. They have the Bring Choral Music to the Pubs Festival in Finland. I mean, every country has that sort of thing, and you gain to appreciate it. I was in Estonia, and the choral music, the musicians, the singers of Estonia, they didn't have any guns, and they're up against the Soviet Union. What do? They sing. The entire country sang for freedom and independence, and they won their independence. There's even there's a movie about it. I went home, the first time I ever was so inspired to go back to my hotel while traveling and stream a movie was to be in Tallinn, the capital of Estonia. and stream the Singing Revolution movie about how the singers of Estonia broke the Soviet Union in a certain way. And that's the power of music. It's a beautiful thing.
Mhm. That is an amazing story. I want to watch that movie now too. Let's see here. Kind of building off how music just seems to be all over the place in Europe. Do you think in Europe they're making music more accessible than it is in the US?
You know,
Classical music.
in the United States, we have this 1,000 points of light thing where we have fundraiser banquets and, silent auctions and Girl Scout cookies and all that kind of thing. In Europe, they don't do that. They don't know what a charity dinner is in Europe. They pay more taxes, and then the government works for the society at large, and it funds culture. That's, to me, so efficient. I mean, forgive me for just being efficient when it comes to culture and taxes and so on, but I don't like all the screwing around we do in these fundraisers because I spend a good part of my life raising money for public television. In Europe, they don't have pledge drives. They've got a little bit higher taxes and they've got BBC. Every country's got BBC. Here we got PBS, but it comes with pledge drives. In Europe, they pay for it in their taxes. So all over Europe, the government recognizes the value of high culture. The government invests in the citizenry. They want a smart citizenry. They've learned historically the cost when your society is dumbed down. We're learning that right now, I would hope, of the cost to a society of an easy to manipulate electorate. And in Europe, they're investing in their society, and they do it in a way that inspires me. You got to work with whatever society you live in. But one of the great things about traveling is you get to see how other societies grapple with the same problems and challenges we're grappling with, and you can learn from their experience. That's the cool thing about travel. As societies, we can compare notes. We're all dealing with the same challenges. When we travel, we talk to each other, we compare notes, and we come home and we say, hey, there is another way to do this, and it works pretty good for them. Let's consider that.
Okay, so our last question tonight is kind of a fun question from Benjamin.
Last question, is that all we have?
And Benjamin is wondering, would you rather have a drink with Richard Wagner or Ringo Starr?
Oh, that is a great question. When I was doing my little piano show there I had to shorten it down because it's too long. It was over 6 minutes. And at the very end, I was going to say, if Debussy could have coffee with Monet or Michelangelo, who would be more interesting for him? Monet or Beethoven, let's say. I mean, in other words, what's more important? What's a bigger connection? The period or the medium? Would an impressionist composer want to have coffee with an impressionist painter, or would an impressionist composer want to have coffee with an impressionist with a Baroque composer? Forgive me, that's a very complicated thing. But my supposition is, my hunch is, the impressionist composer would rather have coffee with an impressionist painter than with another Baroque composer, you see. So would I rather have a beer with Ringo or Richard Wagner? I got to say Richard Wagner. Richard Wagner, he wrote these operas in Germany in the 1860s. And I'm sorry, 1848, because Germany was having all these revolutions, these social revolutions in 1848. And he was out of the country for his safety, out of the country, because he had demonstrated in the streets, like people were demonstrating in the streets recently for Black Lives Matter and so on here. And he was demonstrating for independence, freedom for his country. And he was in trouble. So for the debut of his opera, he could not be there because he was a demonstrator for independence. He was out of the country. Those are those romantic composers that were so into the romantic ideal of a German country for the people who speak German, and an Italian country for the people who speak Italian, and a Norwegian country for people who maybe not were as strong as the Swedes or the Danes, but wanted to be Norwegians, not little underlings of the Swedes or the Danes. So I would be really excited to have a beer with Richard Wagner. And Richard Wagner, maybe you don't know this, Julian, but he was a good buddy of Mad King Ludwig, right?
Yeah,
So
really.
you could get a little dirt on Mad King Ludwig by talking to Richard
Gossip.
Wagner. No offense, Ringo. I'd love to talk to Ringo, but I would take, the more I think of it, hands down, Richard Wagner. Hey, I guess we're out of time, but I'm just so thankful for everybody joining us each Monday for Monday Night Travel. And we've got a lot of great Monday Night Travels coming up. Next week, it's favorite wine moments in Italy. That is going to be a cool show. After that, it is St. Patrick's time, and you can bet what that's going to be. Lots of good Ireland. And then after that, Samantha Brown's going to join us with her new series, Places to Love, and we're going to go together to the Rhineland, and I'm going to have so much fun sharing with Samantha Brown our love of the Rhineland. So we have a lot of travels coming your way, and right now, I just want to wish you all happy travels, even if we're just staying home for a little while. Thanks for joining us.
Good night, everyone.